As you sit patiently in the lobby, your gaze drifts to the mirror on the wall adjacent to the magazine rack. You see a vague resemblance of a youthful you and wonder if anyone would recognize you at a high school reunion. Your doctor is always in a hurry, so you mentally cover what you want to tell him before he gives you another drug that has side effects that make you feel as bad as what you've come to see him for. At this point in your life, you realize that your sex drive is hitting a low point, and after following your doctor's dietary advice, you crave more sugar, are gaining weight, and suspect you're the victim of the environmental toxicity that the evening news reported. Finally, the nurse escorts you into the examining room. She says you'll be seeing Dr. Einstein, an associate of your regular doctor. Couldn't be. But since he's new, maybe you'll have time to explain how lethargic you feel. Maybe he'll have a better explanation for your inability to control your weight and recommend a diet that really works. The door opens and you're looking at a small man with an electric hairdo, a rather large nose, and a gray mustache. Cheerfully he says, "How can I help you today?" The man's eyes have depth and clarity, and you're immediately struck with a sense of wonderment. Could this be the real Albert Einstein, the father of modern science? But you look exactly like... That's because I am Albert Einstein, and you're about to see how well the principles of quantum physics and the theory of general relativity can be applied to medicine. You quickly cover your reasons for coming to your doctor while Einstein flips through your chart. After a long silence, he lifts a bushy brow. "I can see here all your lab tests look good." "Yes, Dr. Einstein, but I just don't feel well. How is it that I feel so lousy, yet my lab tests don't reveal anything wrong with me?" "Well," Einstein replies, "lab tests are much like mathematics. As far as the laws of mathematics refer to reality, they are not certain. As far as they are certain, they do not refer to reality. Lab tests are often just a small piece of a bigger reality. Let's start with a look at your home life, relationships, and work environment. What does that have to do with not feeling well? A human being is a part of a whole, what we call the universe, a part and limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts, and feelings as a part, living in a sort of delusional state. This delusion can be a prison, restricting us to our personal desires, forcing us to show affection to only the few people nearest to us. Our task is to free ourselves from this prison, while widening our circle of compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. How much time do you commit to yourself each day? Do you have a hobby? Take time to exercise, read, and do things you enjoy? I don't have time for all that. I have bills to pay, a mortgage, car payments, and a family to raise. Sure, I enjoy relaxing with a few drinks while watching a late show, but that's about it. My family and friends depend on me. They're the ones who really count." Dr. Einstein sighs. "Not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. You've lost sight of the essence of what creates life, what gives you the vitality and well-being to really live. It's only when you are alive, fully present, self-fulfilled, and happy that you are truly doing what counts. What good are you to your family if you burn out? Think of yourself as the sun in the sky, and your family and friends as being dependent upon your light. As the sun, it is your duty to take care for yourself, so that you never burn out. Like the sun, you can only share the energy that you have. Unfortunately, it has become common for people to burn out while trying to be everywhere and do everything." Einstein places his hands in the pockets of his lab coat. "If you're not taking care of yourself, your life is out of balance. Subsequently, your family's life is out of balance, and that affects your children in ways that may not be obvious to you. Did you know that nearly 50% of American children are overweight, and the number of obese adolescents has quadrupled since 1990? In addition to the problem of childhood obesity, type 2 diabetes among children has increased tenfold in the last 5 years. Type 2 diabetes, rare among children not long ago, presently accounts for 40 to 50% of all cases reported. Don't kids get plenty of exercise? Sadly, not always. California law requires school children to take an annual fitness test. Recently, only 23% of students pass what is a reduced version of the test most adults would have taken as a child. In fact, in one Los Angeles school, only 1% passed the test." Einstein shakes his head. "Adults haven't fared much better. The number of obese adults has more than doubled since 1990. 33% of males and 34% of females are obese. An interesting statistic, considering the percentage of energy from fat has decreased during the past 20 years. Yet the number of obese and overweight and obese people has skyrocketed. Are you saying that fat intake won't necessarily prevent you from being fat? Indeed, let's take you for example. I see in your chart that your doctor has asked you to reduce red meat, trim the fat off other meats, skin your chicken, and he also suggests you try to eat more good carbohydrates in order to lower cholesterol, blood pressure, and body fat percentage. Judging from your weight, reducing your dietary fat is not working for you. To make matters worse, I feel tired and lethargic eating this way, and my cravings are stronger. It seems the only enjoyable thing my doctor allows me to consume is my evening cocktail. If I'm already eating right, do you think it's the cholesterol-lowering drugs that are causing the problems? Drugs can be a challenge to the system, and indeed many American doctors rely too heavily upon them. Europeans eat far more fat, particularly the saturated fat the American dietitians keep harping about, and drink just as much wine. Still, fewer drugs are prescribed in Europe, and in general there is less disease than in the US. In all fairness, American doctors are commonly pressured by patients with a quick fix mentality, and they suffer more than other populations from a this for that attitude. Patients should not go to doctors to get a drug to mask their symptoms. They should go to the doctor to find out what is causing their symptoms and learn what they need to change, whether it be diet or lifestyle, to make them feel better. Consider that in the year 2023, Einstein continues, Americans spent more than $722 billion on prescription drugs, coupled with the $349 billion Americans spent on fast food. In light of these figures, it's easy to see why so many people feel just like you. Now, I'm sure your doctor's dietary recommendations were based on the assumption that, like most people, you won't consider eating foods you were designed by nature to eat. Foods designed by nature to eat? My entire career has been spent trying to determine how God built the universe, how things work in light of a grand view. While there are many opinions on God and on the universe, I've always considered myself a disciple of Baruch Spinoza. Spinoza felt that God is nature, and nature is God, and it is from nature that we human beings have emerged. The problem is, most patients don't realize what we eat today has changed more in the past 40 years than in the previous 40,000. The body can't change that fast, and this causes problems. We've got to get back to our natural principles, the same principles that got us this far in our existence. But we're a modernized society with all kinds of high-tech medicines. People aren't machines, and unfortunately Western medicine has spent a large amount of its time trying to break nature's theorems. They look to break things down into their component parts, looking at disease through the lens of a microscope. Unfortunately, they don't listen to what matters most, the patient's explanation of his or her ailment. To show how a machine works, you take it apart, but to see how a living entity functions, it must be seen as an organism in unity with its natural environment. As a doctor, I can wholeheartedly say that education is what remains after one has forgotten everything he learned in school. And one thing I know for sure is that we have more disease and mental disorder than ever before. Unfortunately, most doctors and scientists focus on finding a cure for disease by studying the disease instead of the conditions that favor the presence of the disease. For example, when I look at the stars, it's obvious that there's no life, as we know it, in our solar system because the conditions are not favorable there. Now, just as plant and animal life doesn't exist on Mercury, Saturn, or Jupiter because the conditions are not favorable, health and vitality are not going to develop in your body until you make conditions favorable for them there as well. So you're saying there's a movement to eat the foods that better match our biological makeup? Well, to be healthy, you've got to model your eating, exercise, and lifestyle after healthy people. While modern medicine has often overlooked the study of healthy people, pioneering healthcare and agricultural professionals such as Paul Chek, Jerry and Anelia Gregorick, Weston A. Price, Sir Robert McCarrison, and Lady Eve Balfour have clearly demonstrated the benefits of organic food for human health. I've never heard of these people. The agriculturalists I mentioned studied various cultures and their relationships between nutrition and disease. Their studies brought out 3 points of significance with regards to healthy groups of people. First of all, the communities they studied lived under harsh conditions, at times with limited resources for food, yet they did not suffer from the physical and nervous disorders now rife among civilized communities. Secondly, they represent a wide variety of races and environments. Their diets varied greatly in the amount of protein and carbohydrates consumed. And finally, they consumed mainly whole foods. Processing was minimal, and all edible portions of food were consumed as to limit waste. Take Lady Eve Balfour, for example. She was a founding member of the British Soil Association, a farmer and lifetime student of nutrition, while serving as the director of the longest-run experiment comparing conventional and organic farming methods. She is most likely the person responsible for Great Britain's organic movement. After a survey of Dr. Price's research on the healthiest people in the world, she said, "The only discernible common factor other than good air seems to be that the diets of all these groups are whole diets in the full sense of the word. There is a complete and continuous transference of health from a fertile soil through plant and or animal to man and back to the soil again. The whole carcass, the whole grain, the whole fruit or vegetable, these things fresh from their source, and that source is fertile soil. Herein appears to lie the secret." So, Einstein continues, "I'm going to fine-tune your doctor's recommendations, provided you're willing to follow my advice." "Of course, Dr. Einstein. I won't try to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. Rather, I will build upon what works, moving towards a greater understanding of the whole. I suggest you buy and eat organic produce and meats whenever possible. Organic foods don't contain dangerous chemical residues, such as pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. Free-range organic meats are raised on high-quality, pesticide-free feed without toxic hormones. Do you think then, Dr. Einstein, that the reason I've not lost weight and felt worse on this diet is because I've been eating commercially farmed produce, commercially raised meats, and processed low-fat foods? Judging by the way you feel when eating processed foods, you can see that these foods are truly toxic and potentially damaging to the body and mind. While it is important to wean yourself from processed foods and sodas and to drink plenty of good, clean water, you must also identify your metabolic type. Each of us has different nutritional needs. To feel your best, you must eat what's right for you. Later, I'll provide you with a questionnaire that will help me determine your metabolic type. You may have been eating the wrong foods or in the wrong amounts for your type. Eating incorrectly for your makeup will shift your body out of a balanced state and can eventually lead to disease. Furthermore, by cutting down on the toxins entering your body from poor food and drink choices, and by reducing the amount of sugar in your diet, you'll see a dramatic difference. If you eat organic, free-range meats, you don't have to worry about cutting the fat away. You can eat red meats. In no time, you'll have more energy, your cholesterol levels are likely to normalize, and you'll be far more interested in getting the exercise you need. And just as you need to determine which are the right foods and proportions that are best for you, you must also choose the best type of exercise or movement and in the right amount for you. I can refer you to a CHEK practitioner who can get you started with their stretching and exercise program that will benefit you the most. To be honest, Dr. Einstein, I've never really liked to exercise. Don't let that stop you. You may be surprised to find that some of the non-traditional approaches to exercise are quite enjoyable. It's more complicated than I thought. It's all connected somehow. Diet, exercise, and state of mind. Indeed, each of the stretches in your body has an accumulative effect. You and your body are a physical, emotional, and mental component of the universe. You are very much like a star in the galaxy, comprised of key systems such as the musculoskeletal, visceral, your organs, limbic, emotional, and hormonal, which are linked to the more subtle body systems such as the emotional and the mental ones. I want you to imagine each of these systems as a separate sink, yet each plumbed together. Now consider that you are constantly overworking and are rife with financial stress, as an example. You can see how that will result in a lot of stress being poured into the physical and limbic, emotional states. To help your body recover both physically and mentally, you must get to sleep earlier in order to provide your body with adequate repair time. The body always wants to find balance and minimize stress on any given system. As you can see, the natural tendency is for the body to share the stress with the organ system and the hormonal system. This is one reason why so many people go to the doctors with seemingly unrelated symptoms, only to be given drugs to treat the symptoms they are asking the doctor to take away. Most drugs, being harmful to the body, put stress on the liver and other organ systems, leading to even more stress to be shared with the rest of the body. Eventually, there's no single major problem in many cases, just a lot of small problems that can grow into bigger ones if left unattended. This is amazing, Dr. Einstein. For the first time, I'm really beginning to understand my body. I'm also beginning to understand that maybe I need to look at my life from a bigger perspective, like you do. I'm going to follow your advice, but I'd really appreciate it if you could recommend a book that will reinforce what you taught me here today. I want to surprise my doctor when I come in for my next checkup. The book I recommend is titled How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek, a well-known holistic health practitioner. I would also recommend a YouTube channel with many fascinating and informative insights called Mind Through Culture. Thank you, Dr. Einstein. My time with you has been very enlightening. How long do you think it will take me to get my body shape and energy back? If you work at it consistently, you can make an amazing transformation in just 3 to 6 months, and in a year, you'll look and feel at least 10 years younger. But remember, you must make all these things a part of your new lifestyle to continue your quest for optimal health.